I feel like I need the toilet.
Hey, it's Evan Carmichael, and like Jay Shetty says,
I'd rather die trying to make a difference and not succeed than don't try at all.
so let's help you make your difference with Jay Shetty and my take on his top 10 rules of success.
Jay Shetty!
Need motivation?
Watch a top 10 with Believe Nation.
Okay, let's kick it off with rule number 1. Allow yourself to procrastinate.
Don't make procrastination the enemy. We think procrastination's bad, it's useless, it's not going to help us, it shows that we're fearful or insecure. But procrastination can often be the greatest space for creativity. Allowing yourself to doodle, allowing yourself to free think, to free write, to freestyle is so important. Now, I can't draw the best, I'm not the best sketcher, but I love putting pen to paper and just allowing my mind to flow through my hand, allowing myself to discover new ideas, new shapes, new thoughts, new names. Some of my best inventions and ideas have come from just allowing myself to procrastinate and to overthink. Sunny Brown, in her book called The Doodle Revolution, talks about how some of the greatest minds in the world doodled and allowed themselves to discover new ideas.
Rule number 2, learn from challenges.
Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. All right? So if you find in your life, when you reflect about this question, that you're going through the same challenges regularly, remember, a challenge will never go away until you learn what you're meant to learn from it. So if you're seeing the same challenge coming up again and again in your personal lives, realize that it's trying to teach you something. As soon as you extrapolate that lesson, you get on to the next challenge, right? They don't go away, but you go up a level, you go up to the next level. So notice that as well. Remember, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result.
Rule number 3, practice gratitude.
The incredible thing about gratitude is that when you're present in gratitude, you can't be anywhere else. That means that if you're having a thankful thought, you can't have a worry thought. If you're having a grateful thought, you can't have an anxious thought. What an incredible creation. Gratitude and thankfulness has to be practiced in a particular way. It has to be, first of all, expressed. Keeping a gratitude journal is wonderful. Writing down what you're grateful for is beautiful. But it's only when you express it that it starts to have the impact that I'm speaking about. The second way it has to be practiced is it has to be specific. It has to be specific to the person. It has to be something specific that happened recently, that's current, or even if it happened in the past. And the third is, it has to be personalized. It has to be something that you'd only say to them. It's not something that you could send to 20 people and they could all feel it was about them. Let me give you an example. 2 people come to your home for a party. They both text you the day after the party. The first person texts you, they'd say, Jay, thanks so much. The second person texts me and they say, Jay, we had an amazing time. We loved meeting all your friends, we loved meeting your family, it was such a great time, and the food was out of this world. Thank you so much, obviously to Radhi. And the games that we played were just so much fun, it was the highlight of my year. Which message is going to make you feel more loved and cared for? Obviously, it's the second, because it's not only expressed, but it's specific and it's personalized. Now, the amazing thing about gratitude given in that way is that not only is the receiver happy, but the giver is so much happier as well. The bond that you create when you share that type of thankfulness will start to reduce anxiety in your life because it boosts your immune system, it boosts your mood, and it boosts your relationships.
Rule number 4, impact the world positively.
There's a beautiful quote from the Dalai Lama where he said that we're born to help people, and if we can't help them, let's at least not hurt them. And I think that's the intention, that you want to leave every person happier than you found them, leave every place cleaner than you found it, leave every project more productive than you found it. Like, you want to feel that if you couldn't uplift something or someone, at least don't pull it down. And I think that when you live like that in your intention, people feel that. This isn't necessarily something that you even have to say or do. People feel that when you just leave a place and all you wanted to do was give your energy in a positive way. So to me, intention is just coming from a place of how do I leave every person just a little bit happier than I found them. I don't have to change their life.
Right.
But how
try
do
not to hurt them.
Try not to hurt them.
Also, to make sure you're actually taking action after watching this video, I've designed a special free worksheet just for this video. The worksheet will highlight all of the lessons learned in this video, as well as pull out our 3 favorite learnings and quotes that will inspire you to actually do something. The worksheet will also give you space to write down what your key takeaways are and your specific plan of action to make sure you're getting results. If you want the worksheet designed specifically for this video, absolutely for free, there's a link in the description below. Go click on it and start building the momentum in your life and your business. I'll see you there. Rule number 5, overcome failure.
Overcoming failure, or even life in general through this whole process, is an inner journey. And I'll explain what I mean by that. One of our biggest challenges with failures is that we start worrying about others' approval and validation. How many of you feel that way, right? Be honest, how many of you feel that way, right? We all feel that way. That we're worried about breaking the mold because of what people would say. We're worried about taking a risk because we don't know how someone's going to react, right? Last week I was doing a Facebook Live Q&A and I was asked a conversation. We had about 2,000 people joining in for about half an hour. And one of them asked me this question, and it stayed with me ever since I did it. And they asked me this question. They said, what's the most difficult thing you've ever overcome in life? Right? What's the most difficult thing you've ever overcome in life? Through my head ran sports injuries, ran health challenges, ran emotional challenges. You know, all these different thoughts ran through my head. And then this answer came to me. And the answer came to me and I said to myself, it's not even something I've overcome, but I felt it was the right thing to share. I said that one of the most important things, or one of the most difficult things that any of us can overcome, and I haven't overcome it, is living for the perception of others. That's actually one of the most difficult things we can overcome. When we forego the voice of our ego and tune into the voice of our intuition, right? Our voice of our ego says, what will people say? The voice of our ego says, what if you don't make it? The voice of our ego says, this part will be safer. This path is better trodden on. And the voice of our intuition is saying, but you don't love that, you love this. This is your heart's calling. This is what's gonna make you happy every day. If you can make this work, it will be phenomenal. And that's why I always remind myself, and I've been saying this to myself for years, when I've done jobs I didn't like, when I've done jobs that were okay, and I've done jobs that I always said to myself, I'd rather die trying to make a difference and not succeed than don't try at all. It's always been a mantra I've repeated to myself. I'd rather die trying to make a difference and not succeed than not try at all. Because what's exciting is the journey of every day growing and becoming the person I think I need to be to attract the goal that I want. That's more exciting to me than even reaching that goal. Believing every day that it's possible, believing that it's possible, looking at that limitless possibility and working in that way. Therefore, a lot of the challenges we have are simply to give us responsibility for the success that we're about to take on, right? Pressure creates diamonds, right? Pressure creates diamonds. It's not possible to have these beautiful diamonds without pressure. And therefore, for all of us, there's different ways that we'll be pressurized in our inner journey. But learning that it's an inner journey is extremely important. And what I mean by that is foregoing the perception of others.
Rule number 6, chase meaning.
You can climb up a ladder, but is it against the right wall? Are you climbing up a wall that you actually want to climb up? If you climb up the left-hand side of the wall, but that wasn't the place you wanted to be at the top, there's no point of being at the top. And one of the reasons why we procrastinate and overthink is because what we're chasing isn't meaningful enough. It's not purposeful enough. It's not fulfilling enough. We don't realize that we're just trying to get up the wrong wall and we never take the first step because we don't actually care. Put your ladder against a wall that you care about climbing. I know that when I deeply care about the pain or suffering of another that I want to help support or serve, that gets me out of bed more than any other procrastination technique or hack in the entire world.
Rule number 7, find inspiration.
Inspiration helps us deal with anxiety because when we're feeling inspired, when we're feeling motivated, we're able to use that emotion to help navigate the anxious emotions we're having. The way I like to get inspired is by listening to audiobooks. It's also by listening to incredible speeches. Recently, I had the fortune of interviewing Matthew McConaughey on my podcast On Purpose, and I said to him that at one point in my life, I used to listen to his Oscars acceptance speech from around 2015 every single day. It's only 5 minutes. I would listen to it in the morning and it would give me this boost of inspiration. Instead of starting my mornings with looking at my phone and opening up my mind up to news, notifications, negativity, and noise, I was starting my day with an inspirational word. Maybe an inspirational paragraph from a book you love or an inspirational quote.
Rule number 8, live a purposeful life.
Your whole podcast is about on purpose. What's the difference between discovering your purpose, finding your purpose, living it, and living a purposeful life?
I think that living your purpose is where it's so much about you and your journey. And living a purposeful life is when you're now letting that overflow into everyone else's life. So it's like you want to find your purpose and you want to feel satisfied in that. But a purposeful life is where you are igniting other people's purposes and it's overflowing with that love and that compassion and gratitude. And that's hard because it takes time. And you can't expect people to do that while they're still filling up too. And I think sometimes everyone will always look like they're finished and they're done and they made it. It's like, no one's ever made it. And you speak to some of the most successful people in the world and even they don't feel they've made it. And so we are always doing both at the same time. You're always filling up your purpose and you're always trying to be purposeful at the same time, but you're not ever going to be fully in purpose and you're never fully going to be purposeful. It's all a symbiotic relationship that has to happen in parallel.
Yeah.
Does that make sense to your question?
Makes sense to me.
Rule number 9, meditate.
What I want you to do is start scheduling time with yourself in your diary, in your calendar. You would never cancel an important meeting with someone else, but we don't even schedule one with ourselves. If you start by having that time as your meditation time, where you're not on your phone, you're not watching TV, you're not listening to a message or responding to an email, you just sit with yourself and check in with yourself. And you ask yourself, how am I doing today? How do I feel? What do I need to do better? Just checking in with yourself is the beginning of your meditation practice.
And rule number 10, the last one before some very special bonus clips, is develop an adaptive attitude.
We live in an age of instant, right? Instant coffee, instant food, instant delivery. Everything's instant. We don't, in one sense, even need to adapt. And I know Google, I've spent a lot of time in the London offices of Google, and I'm sure it's even better here if I'm allowed to say that. But I'm sure that everything's available, right? You guys have everything available. You don't, in one sense, need to adapt. You turn up to work and everything that you need is right there. And that's the society we live in, but I'm talking about how we need to have an adaptive attitude. I had something happen to me about a month ago when I was traveling to LA. How many of you have been to LA? How many of you like LA? Okay, popular over here, yeah. So I love LA, right? I love LA. So I was going to LA and I love social media as well. So I got my phone out and I sent a tweet and I said, I can't wait to go to LA. And I said, I really, really hope I can get tickets to the LA Lakers game tonight because I'm a big basketball fan. How many of you are basketball fans? Awesome. And no one here supports the Lakers, right? Oh, okay, awesome. Good. Oh, nice, okay. And I said, I really hope I can get a reservation at my favorite pizza place because I have a favorite pizza place in LA. Anyone like pizza? Yeah, easy. And so I tagged in my favorite pizza place. I sent the tweet, thought nothing of it. I got on the plane. I usually just go to sleep. That's my usual travel routine. Went to sleep, got off at the other side. I grabbed my bags, got outside, ordered an Uber, of course, jumped in, got off at the other end, was greeted at the hotel by the concierge, went to see the receptionist, and they said to me, here you go, Mr. Shetty, here's the keys to your room, here's the card, told me about a bit of the facilities, and then they said, you know what, we actually saw your tweet, and because of that, we've booked you a reservation at your favorite pizza place, and we've got you tickets to the LA Lakers game tonight. They're upstairs in your room, right? Now that didn't really happen. But imagine if it did, right? Imagine if it did. I've had similar things happen to me. These are all hints and tips I'm throwing out to the LA Lakers and my favorite pizza place. But imagine if it did. Now, how many of you, be honest, how many of you were with me when I was saying that? How many of you believe me that it was true? Yeah? Why did you believe me? Because it's possible. Because today it's possible, right? It's not about who I am, I'm not famous. You believe me because it's possible. You believe me because today brands have to know what's happening in a customer's life. Today, brands have to be aware of what people are talking about on social media. You believe me because it's possible. But actually, our experience of life is very different. You can do that for things, but you can't do that for experiences. How many of you have had an instant, powerful experience? It's rare. You can have instant coffee, you can have instant food, but to have an instant, powerful experience, on-demand experience, it's not very easy. It takes a lot more work. And that's why adaptive attitude for our personal lives, even if our technological lives are instant, we can't apply that same thinking. And often that challenges us when we're overcoming failures, that we expect things to happen quicker because everything else in our life happens quicker. So the adaptive attitude, a great story is about a gentleman who actually worked at Yahoo. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that. Worked at Yahoo for 12 years. I think he graduated from Stanford. He had a great lineup of a great CV. Had a great career trajectory ahead of him, but he really wanted to go work at Facebook and Twitter, right? So he applied to Facebook and he got quite far, but then he got rejected, so he sent a tweet. And the tweet said, really nice people, didn't make it in, I hope my journey will go better, I hope this can work out. He then applied to Twitter, got quite far, finally got rejected, and sent a tweet saying, I'm glad I got rejected, it was a bit of a long commute, right? He was seeing the positive side of things of getting rejected. A few years on, him and his friend from Yahoo, they went away and they started working on apps. They thought, let's start a startup, let's start working in that space, use of all of our thing. We've been rejected from this world. Let's try go out there and do something together. They went out there in 4 years, they sold their app to Facebook for $19 billion, right? And that app is WhatsApp. Now, I'm not sure if WhatsApp's so popular over here, but in the UK and over in India when I'm traveling over there, everyone's using WhatsApp, right? And they sold that app for $19 billion. That's Brian Acton, the co-founder of WhatsApp, that's him. He was rejected from Facebook and Twitter, and if you go onto Google and type in Facebook, Twitter rejection for Brian Acton, you'll see the tweets that he posted. They now have millions of retweets, right? They're really popular now. But at that time when he sent them, no one even noticed. And he reacted positively online, sharing his rejection with the world. And I look at that and I think, wow, that's powerful. How many of us, including how many of us, would be able to share a rejection from a corporate employer on Facebook, Twitter, online, on any of our social media platforms? It's extremely difficult. But his adaptive attitude of actually looking at the good side of things, looking at the positive, moving away from what the traditional person would do through a rejection, meant that a few years later he sold it. And the joke that I've heard in Silicon Valley when I've traveled there is that Mark Zuckerberg paid $19 billion for a person he could have hired for about $100,000. So it's amazing. It's an amazing story of having an adaptive attitude, very different to how we deal with technology in our lives, but really powerful of what we can achieve.
A young boy once asked his teacher, "What's the difference between I like you and I love you?" The teacher beautifully answered, "Well, it's like a flower. If you like a flower, you pluck it. But if you love a flower, you water it and nurture it daily and watch it grow." There is such a thin line between like and love, and because of it, we make so many mistakes in our relationships. When we want something in the moment, we take it and don't think any further. We do whatever we want to get that feeling of pleasure, not realizing that we're neither satisfied by that pleasure and nor will that thing last. When we pluck a flower, not only will that flower die, but we can't experience it for any longer than that moment. When you water it and take care of it daily, you can experience it forever. We've been wired towards an instant gratification, instant pleasure mindset. All of the adverts that we see, whether they're online or offline, are geared to driving us towards making instant decisions for instant promises of pleasure. The catch is, not only does that instant pleasure not satisfy us, the feeling doesn't last. We're so used to seeing all the straplines and headlines on the internet. Learn this language in 5 minutes. Get the ideal body in 10 minutes a day. Become a millionaire in 12 months. Now, all of these sound brilliant, right? The problem is, they're not real. They're not true. They're false promises. The reason why it works is because it appeals to one of the most basic human desires: situational improvement without major resource investment. Of course, you can pick up a few words in another language or shed a few pounds of weight if that was your goal. Or maybe you will make a little bit more money. But real knowledge, real awareness, real fitness, real business, all of these things take time. Real relationships, real connection, real purpose takes time. Naturally, the internet headlines focus on the short term instead of the long term. Because most of us would never click on something if it said, learn a language in 5 years with dedicated daily practice. We wouldn't click on something that said, here is the 1 hour workout that you need to do every single day. And we wouldn't click on the one that said, if you want to be a millionaire, here are the 10 failures that you'll go through in year 1, how broke you might be by year 3, and you may not even make it by year 9. The important lesson here is, if you want meaning, if you want purpose, if you want fulfillment, those things take time. So I read an incredible study that changed the way I create and think. And it said that the human mind can't be logical and creative at the same time. How many of you have ever walked from a highly creative brainstorm where you were fueled with passion and then had to talk about numbers and business and, right? It's tough, right? Anyone ever found that quite difficult? It's quite challenging, and the mind's like trying to run from one side of the brain to the other side of the brain. So what I do is I create in depth. So I go really deep into my creation, and then I go really deep into everything else that I have to do. So before I went to India, I created my content in advance. And so when I was in India, I was able to really switch off. So the beauty of being able to be in India for 21 or 30 days, or wherever I am in the world for that matter, I'm then not having to think of creativity as stress or pressure. I'm able to do creativity as a form of passion and service. And so when I was in India, I was able to not look at Instagram. I was able to not look at Facebook. I was able to completely switch off for 21 days when I was there earlier in January. And I started my year in the way I wanted to. So I was meditating for 8 hours a day. I was spending time with my teachers who are mind-blowing and incredible, and trying to learn from them and take in knowledge and wisdom from them, and continuously praying to be of more service this year and make a difference this year. So that's how I chose to spend my January. And I had so many people saying to me, they were just like, Jay, it's January. Things are going well in your career. How can you take 21 days off? Right? That pressure, that noise of like, things are going good for you. How can you take time off? I was like, things are going good because I'm doing this. Right? Like, you know, I had one of my teachers that has kept saying to me for years, he goes, if you want to move 3 steps forward, you have to go 3 steps deep. And so if I'm not going forward, I know it's because I haven't gone deep. So for me, that's a big priority for me. And that's what I try and do when I try and do that every day, but I also believe in immersive experiences. So a lot of us today, we live in this world which is like 10 minutes a day. Do it for 10 minutes a day, everything will be great. And that is great. There's nothing wrong with that. But imagine you spent, with a boy or a girl, your partner, whoever it was, someone that you just started dating. Imagine you spent 10 minutes a day with them. How long would it take you to figure out whether you wanted to fall in love with them or not? Probably a long time. And so when you go immersive, if you spend a weekend away with someone, you know whether you like them or not. And meditation, mindfulness, all these habits are the same. The more you immerse yourself, the more you get an experience that stays with you, the more that you can live with that experience and keep going back to it for 10 minutes a day. So I really believe in immersive experiences. I love the 10-minute-a-day advice, but I also deeply believe in having a deep, immersive, absorbed experience that completely takes over your whole body, mind, and soul. We're wired for generosity, but we're educated for greed. I think I just said it to you 2 years ago when I was on the podcast. Yes. And it's like, and when I said that in the statement, it was, and it's so true. We're wired for generosity, but we're educated for greed, because what happens is when we're kids, you'll see kids
you want to share.
Go out their way. They want to share.
It's part of my candy bar, whatever,
totally,
right?
Yeah. And then as we get older, we're told that there's less. And this is what the key is. As we get older, we're told there are finite numbers of how many kids get made onto the basketball or baseball team.
Yes.
We're told there's a finite number of college spaces. We're told there's a finite number of how many tickets there are. We're told there's a finite number of people that are successful. Guess what? In the theater of happiness, there are infinite and unlimited seats. And there is a seat with your name on it.
That's so good.
There is a seat with your name on it in the theater of dreams, in the theater of happiness. But you think that because you think that there are only 100 people allowed in, that if someone else makes it before you, that you don't get in. And guess what? Is there a cap on how many billionaires there are in the world?
No.
No. Is there a cap on how many millionaires there are in the world?
No.
No. Is there a cap on how many happy people there are in the world? No. And that's why I really am encouraging Forbes. I want Forbes, forget printing a rich list, print a copy list, print a
Wow.
service list, print a list of who is
We should
serving.
do that. We should do
who
that.
is serving the most in the world.
Wow.
Right?
That'll be competition based.
Yeah, sure.
I gave more than you gave.
Yeah, and that's why it should be service based on time, energy, and money. Because we should start showing how much time people give, how much energy people give. Mother Teresa, I don't think she gave any money to her charities.
Right.
But she gave a lot of time and energy.
Yeah.
You know, you look at all the people who made a change in the world, Martin Luther King, Gandhi, like, they may not have given a lot of money to stuff.
Yeah,
They gave time and energy.
You don't have to give resources, but your resourcefulness, your love, your
Love
time,
that.
your focus, your attention, your compassion.
Love that. Yeah.
Resourcefulness of the heart, not of the wallet, I think is
Love
key.
that.
And you don't need to have a lot of money to make a big impact.
You don't. There's and this is the training. See, we've been educated for greed because we've been told everything's limited. There's limited number of this, limited number of this, number. And every time you play in numbers, and I think it was Bob Marley who said it, but every time you play in numbers, you'll always be dissatisfied because guess what?
Someone's always have more.
Someone's always gonna have more. I was speaking to a friend recently, and this friend was telling me that he bought a home, which is very expensive.
Yes.
Very, very expensive. And he went to a party at someone else's house. And he told me that when he was getting a tour of this party, he found out that this person had a painting on his wall which cost the amount his house cost.
Shut up.
And so he was joking with me. He was like, that guy's painting
in the house.
He's got my house on his wall.
Wow.
And that just puts things into perspective. And you think about that, like, and then you look at someone like Jeff Bezos and you think, oh, well, he's the richest man in the world, but does he have the most fame? No, he doesn't.
Right.
Does he have the most beauty? Subjective decision. Does he have the most strength or power? Maybe not. And so no one has the most of everything. So when you measure yourself by numbers, you'll always be second, third, fourth, fifth in something.
How many of you spend a lot of your days multitasking? Okay, good. So a lot of us spend our time multitasking. Now studies show that only 2% of us are actually able to multitask. And when most people hear that, they're like, yeah, I'm in that 2%. That's me, right? I'm in that 2%. You're probably not, I'm not, because it's only 2% of the global population of the world. Multitasking is a myth. And I find that as spiritual activists, as conscious change makers, as change agents of the world, whatever you want to call yourself, all of us, one of the biggest mistakes we've seen, and this was the quote that I shared and a thought from Martin Luther King that I've really held close to me, is he said, those who love peace need to learn to organize themselves as well as those who love war, right? Those who love peace need to learn to organize themselves as well as those who love war, i.e., people who are trying to build destruction in the world and distractions in the world are highly organized, highly focused, highly data-oriented, highly strategic, highly process-driven. And so we have to be the same. And when you spend time with Vision, or you spend time with the Mind Valley team, you realize their success is intuitive, it is deep, it is full of love, but it is also highly strategic, it is also highly focused, and therefore it's effective. And so for me, my plea to all of you and to myself is whatever we're gonna do, let's get really strategic about it. Let's bring sincerity and strategy together. Let's bring data and dynamism together. Let's bring intuition and insight together, right? Let's not look beyond that and think, oh, that stuff's gonna work out because my intention's nice, right? Your intention's not gonna run a mile, but it will help you run the marathon. But it's not gonna run that mile that you need to do right now. And so for me, intention and action, intention and attention, both of them are required. And so my recommendation is whatever your dream is, whatever you're inspired by, whatever you think is gonna have a positive impact on the world, bring both to that, right? Don't settle for one or the other.
How do you help people develop their strengths and recognize what their strengths are in the first place and calm that monkey mind so that they can see clearly?
This is why I love Tom. You're just amazing. I mean, Tom, you're literally explaining my book for me. I'm just like, this is like the biggest masterclass of the book. It's great. No, and you're spot on that the monkey mind is what we all experience every day. So the monkey mind is jumping from branch to branch. It doesn't want to focus on the root of the issue. It wants to find the next banana. It wants to find the next excuse. It wants to find the next instant gratification, right? That's the monkey mind. And so the monkey mind is never going to help you focus on your strengths. And the reason, going back to one of the earlier questions you asked, the reason why we struggle to find our passion is because the world has constantly pushed us away from our strengths. We've constantly been told to focus on your weaknesses. Oh, you've got 3 A's and a D, you should be working on that D. Let's get that up to an A, right? I remember in my school, they had this excruciating exercise where you'd be ranked 1 to 180 on every subject every year.
Whoa.
And they'd send the list home to your parents. So there were 180 students in my year group, and every subject, art, math, English, science, geography, history, you name it, you were ranked 1 to 180 in every subject based on your test results and scores. And that was like painful when my parents received that. And the crazy thing was, I would always outperform, always. In art, design, philosophy and economics, and English, I was always in the top half, if not in the top quarter, if not in the top 5, right, of my whole year group. And stuff like science and geography and math, I was kind of like in the middle and towards the bottom end of my year. Now, granted, I went to a competitive school, so I was still okay at those things. But the interesting thing was that my parents and my friends' parents would never look at what you came 1 or 2 or 3 in. They'd be looking at the things you came 90, 100, and 110 in. And so we've all been programmed to say, oh, your strengths, they're fine. They're good the way they are. But why are you not performing at this? And so the one way to know your strengths is to ask yourself, what do you do that you feel the most confidence doing? And it could be something as simple as, I'm great at organizing birthday parties. It could be. Like, that may be your skill, right? That may be your strength. Or it may be something like, I'm really good at putting on makeup. Or it could be that I have a great sense of fashion. It could be any of those things. And if you don't know it yet, you can also do an exercise where you sit down with a colleague, a family member, and a friend, because you need people from all areas of your life, and you ask them, what do you think I do that I excel in, that I stand out in? Or if you could trust me to do one thing in your life for you, what would that one thing be? And when you ask that to people in a reflective way, really asking for that presence, you might be surprised by what they say. And that's such a powerful question to ask, because someone may actually say something like to you, like, Jay, I think your greatest strength is just knowing what to say to me when I most need it. And you may think, well, that's not a strength you can do anything with, but it is. It is a strength that you can do a lot with if you are okay with accepting that. Of course, I want someone to say to me, oh, Jay, you're an athlete like Cristiano Ronaldo, and you could play football and get the Ballon d'Or and win all these trophies, but that's not my reality. And so I feel that that's the place that I would start with strengths. And there was a great study done on the healthy, wealthy, and wisest people in the world. And they were asked, if you could invest in what you're good at, you're average at, or what you're bad at, where would you put your money? And so if you take 100%, how would you divide that as a ratio? And if you ask this, I want everyone who's listening and watching at home right now to do this exercise. And you may write down 33, 33, 33. You may write down 40, 40, 20. You may write down 10, 10, 80. Whatever you write down, the most healthy, wealthy, wisest, successful people on the planet will say theirs is 100, 0, 0, or 80, 10, 10. They go all in on their strengths because they know that if they go all in on their strengths, they can become exceptional at it. Now, here's the caveat. When it comes to your hard skills, focus on your strengths. But when it comes to your soft skills, focus on your weaknesses.
Now you got to tell me which is which.
Yeah, so hard skills are things like Excel, math, product design, using a video camera, script writing, speaking. These are all hard skills in the sense that they're very clearly defined, very tangible. You can really measure them. It's almost like a skill that's measurable. Your soft skills are like emotional intelligence, listening, compassion, empathy. These are all soft skills or considered soft skills. And those are where you focus on your weaknesses because they can actually end up tripping you up while you're trying to become the best at doing the hard skill. So you may be the best videographer in the world, but if you don't know how to listen to your community and your team, then no one's going to want to work with you. And so to me, that's the missing link, that we're actually the other way around. We put all our emphasis on getting better at our weaknesses and our hard skills, and we think that because we're empathetic and good people, that will be enough. And it doesn't work that way. Let me tell you about this girl called Cleo. I think you might know someone like her too. She had the dream of becoming a model. She said she was going to move to LA to pursue it seriously. She took care of herself, at least her body well. Someone told me she did ads for L'Oreal. She had so many followers on Instagram who all loved her. Within a minute of her posting a picture, there would be hundreds and hundreds of comments, all telling her how beautiful she was, how good she looked, comment after comment, like after like. She was a real entertainer. She was always making everyone laugh. I remember every guy wanted her number. But she kept to herself. She just had this infectious energy. She got along with everyone. She was always the life of the party. She was never seen in the same outfit twice. Boxes and boxes of Amazon Prime. On Instagram, she was the perfect girl with the perfect life, the perfect world with the perfect guys. But nothing's perfect, right? It seemed like she was always having the best time with her friends, always traveling, new experiences, and so many great stories to share, until people started to notice. I think she lived like two lives. No one really knew her inside. She had everyone to text, but no one to talk to. Everyone to follow, but no one to walk with. When the phone was up, her world was a stage. When it was down, her reality came. She had an invite to every event, but still felt lonely. She had all the friends in the world, but still felt no one really knows me. She was going through pain, but never showed that side. It was something she hid from the world. Or maybe we just never asked. She had masked her sadness with what looked like the ideal life. She was always flying high in the air, but felt low inside. Her inbox was always full, but she felt empty within. She was happy on the outside, but struggling with depression and anxiety. She had an addiction that everyone called a lifestyle, but she was struggling with mental health, but people were just occupied by her physical appearance. See, people think depression is sadness. People think depression is crying. People think depression is being quiet. Depression is when we smile, but we want to cry. It's when we talk, but we want to be quiet. It's when we pretend like we're happy, but we're not. Depression is not always obvious. She drank to drown her pain, but the pain learned how to swim. She was sick of crying, tired of trying, smiling, but inside she was dying. It's amazing how we can think we know someone and still not know them at all. I don't think we understand how stressful it is to explain what's going on in your head when you don't even understand yourself. We use filters to lighten our photos whilst we carry the heavy weight of stress. Remember, it's okay to have highlight reels, but make sure someone knows how you really feel. It's okay to use FaceTime, but make sure you spend quality time face to face. It's okay to have followers, but make sure you have true friends. Don't live for the approval of others. Document the moments you're most in love with yourself, not just the moments you think people will love the most. When someone doesn't post for a few days, we ask if they're okay. When someone posts every day, we assume they are. Tell people you love them. Be a trustworthy friend. Tell them that they matter. Tell them that they've survived a lot and they're ready to thrive now. People who care will ask how you're doing. People who love you will wait till you tell the truth. And that's why Robin Williams said, I used to think that the worst thing in life was to end up alone. It's not. The worst thing in life is to end up with people who make you feel alone. Albert Einstein famously remarked in a conversation with Werner Heisenberg, he said, you know, in the West, we've built a beautiful ship and in it, it has all the comforts. But actually the one thing that it doesn't have is a compass, and that's why it doesn't know where it's going. This paradox of our times was propounded by the Dalai Lama when he said we have wider freeways but narrower viewpoints. We have taller buildings but shorter tempers. Will Smith said that we spend money we haven't earned on things we don't need to impress people we don't like. And it's phenomenal how the same technology that brings us close to those who are far away takes us far away from the people that are actually close. 30 billion WhatsApp messages are sent per day, but 48% of people say that they feel lonelier in general. The paradox of our times is that we have more degrees but less sense, more knowledge but less judgment, more experts but less solutions. It was Martin Luther King who said that the irony of our times is that we have guided missiles but misguided men. Have you ever found it perplexing that we've been all the way to the moon and back, but we struggle to start a conversation across the road or across the train? And it's amazing that Bill Gates was known as the top earner in 2015 with a wealth of 79.2 billion, but 1 in 4 CEOs claim to be struggling from depression. Do we actually thrive off this paradox? Is it that this paradox actually makes the media interesting? It's what makes journalism interesting. It's what makes politics interesting. It's what makes television interesting. Is this paradox actually what we feed off and what we live off and what we talk about and discuss in our circles? Doesn't it seem that we've tried to clean the air but polluted our soul? We've split the atom but not our prejudice, and we're aiming for higher incomes but we have lower morals. So I'm hearing you ask, how do we bring a change? How do we dissect this paradox that exists in our lives? And it starts by us, each of us, pressing pause, pressing reset, and then pressing play again, taking a moment to become more conscious, taking a moment to become more aware, taking a moment to really reflect on the consequence, the implications of a misplaced word, of an unnecessary argument that we all know we didn't need to have, or to speak to someone just slightly differently, in a different tone, in a different voice, in a different empathy, with a different perspective, just to really connect with people on a different level. This thinking out loud started from Albert Einstein, and I'll track back to him when he actually said that the problems we have today can't be solved with the same thinking we used when we once created them. So actually, we need to research alternative teachings. We need to dig into those ancient books of wisdom. We need to go back to understanding if there's anything written in those creased pages of time that can actually reveal more knowledge and more wisdom of how we can transform our experience of life today. Otherwise, this paradox means that every step forward we take, we're taking 3 backwards every time.
But what is faith to you?
Faith to me, like the 2 polarities, is the day-to-day practices and the map. So it's the thing that's guiding every decision.
Right.
It's the thing that's guiding every direction that I move in. It's the thing that guides who I want to be friends with, who I want to connect with, the type of work I want to do. But then it's also what I do daily. And to me, that's what's so beautiful about faith, that it can be practical and simple, but then it can be philosophical and spiritual.
Yeah.
And so to me, faith is both, because if I'm not practicing on a daily basis, how can it last?
Right.
And if it's not the governing thing behind all my decisions, then how is it true? Like, how is it real?
And how is it your moral compass also?
Exactly. Yeah. So for me, it's both of those things at all times. And so it's everything I do in the morning. So my meditation practices, my prayer, the way I communicate, how I speak to my wife. Like, I think all of those things, how I speak to anyone,
Right.
I think all of those things are my faith. And at the same time, it's like, am I doing this out of love? Am I doing this out of service? Am I taking this decision just because it pays the bills and just because it makes money? Or am I doing this just because I think it'll be cool? It's the same as, it's so funny you asked me this question, because I was speaking to someone about you just before coming on the show today.
Really?
Yes. I was saying one of the things I love about Ashley and why I think we get along so well and we find it so easy to connect is because we both have such deep faith.
Yes.
And I said, I always find it easier when you meet someone who has their faith, and it may be different, but they're open.
Yep.
And then you just connect. And that's how I feel with you, that when we first started talking and meeting, I felt it straight away.
The people who are really rooted in their faith, and that comes before anything else, I always connect.
Yeah. Learn how to have a conversation with yourself. Like, if you don't know, I'll give it one of the studies that I share in the book, which I absolutely love. Men and women were asked either to be alone with their thoughts for 15 minutes, or they could give themselves an electric shock if they were bored.
And they took the shock.
30% of women chose an electric shock, and 60% of men chose an electric shock because they didn't want to be alone with their thoughts.
For 15 minutes.
For 15 minutes. Why is that? Because we have not learned to have a conversation with ourselves.
Or even love ourselves.
No, we haven't. And I think that starts with the conversation.
Yeah.
I think you're right. We don't love ourselves, but that starts with learning to talk to yourself. So find time for you to talk to your own mind, to talk to yourself, to understand yourself, to find out. How many of us, when you go to a restaurant, you know whether you're going to go back or not, based on whether you like the food. When you watch a movie, you know whether you're going to recommend it to your friends based on whether you liked it or not. Why do we keep visiting the same people, the same places, and doing the same projects when they don't lift us up? So many of us are not aware of the same people that we hang around with that bring us down, the places that don't feed us, they drain our energy, and the projects that don't light us up.
Yeah.
But we keep going back there because we don't talk to ourselves. Because we don't talk to ourselves, because no one, like I can ask you, hey, did you like that restaurant? But when do we ask ourselves, hey, do I want to hang out with that person? Does that person
Do I want to be in this relationship?
Do I want to be in this
Do I want to be in
relationship?
this job?
We
Do I
get
want this-
scared of those conversations.
For me, I usually write down each option that I have in life, and I think we all have different options in life, and then I'll place a word above it that feels like the right emotion. So either it can be fame, I could be doing something just because of ego and fame, I could be doing something out of love, I could be doing something for money and stability, I could be doing something for inspiration and passion. So I try and define why. It's defining that why, that intention behind it. Like, why would I take that extra flight off to Singapore? Oh, because I'm going to make X amount of money, right? Like, and literally, when you look at your life like that, yeah, there you go. And then I'd be like, okay, that's a weed. Now, can I transform it into a seed? Is there a way for me to make it more intentional, purposeful, and conscious? If I can, that's amazing. I'll do that. But if I can't, I need to stop taking things like that into my life. And now I understand, for anyone listening, there are times in our life where money has to be the motivator because we need security, we need stability. But when you do it intentionally, at least then you don't expect that thing to bring you the greatest happiness because you know what purpose it's serving in your life. So I know a lot of people who'd love to quit their jobs and live their passion. But I'm like, no, but you know why, if you know why you're doing the job you're doing, you won't expect it to make you happy. You will know what it serves, right? What role it serves in your life.
In shamanism, we have this viewpoint that spirituality is not separate from life. It means that someone who's spiritual, even if they don't meditate or work with crystals or do any of these things, it means they're willing to evolve. I want to know what your thought is about that.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that's beautiful and completely aligns with me. I don't think, see, we look at everything about, oh, what can I learn? And actually half of learning, in my opinion, is really unlearning. Everyone already has the answer inside of them. You're not really learning anything new. You're just trying to get rid of all the bad lessons you learned. And everyone has that. So it's not so much about like, oh, is this person going from here to here? It's not really that. It's like, is someone going from here to here? And for me, one of the ways I've always thought about it is you can't take the world further than where you visited internally. So for me, every person that we're meeting already has that journey right there. And all you're asking them to do is look inwards as opposed to outwards. So no, I completely agree with you. And I think that's a beautiful point that you've shared. And I think it's something nice for us to know so that we don't judge and label people. We don't walk around and think, oh, those are spiritual people. Those are not spiritual people. Because, yeah, we're all spiritual people. And it's just that some are covered. It's like the sun's always out, but often it's covered with the clouds. Rarely here, a bit more lately. But the sun is always out. It's just get covered by the clouds, and that's us. We've just been covered. And we get covered by those clouds, and they cloud our identity, they cloud our perception. And so all we're doing for ourselves and others is clearing out the clouds. And the more we do that for ourselves, the more we can do it for others, and the more we do it for others, the more we do it for ourselves.
In 2016, I moved out to New York. So just let me paint a picture of 2016. I moved 3 jobs. I got married.
Wow.
I moved country, and I just started a whole new life. Like my life just transformed. So we went through all of that with my wife in 1 year. And by the way, all of that was surprises. The job change was surprises.
Yeah.
The country change was a surprise. The marriage was not a surprise. We planned that.
Right.
But apart from everything else, everything was a surprise. Now I said I like surprises, so I can roll with it. But my point is that's a lot of transition in a year.
So much transition.
And I felt the burden of being in a new city where we had no family, we had no friends. And my wife, who loves being around her family, and no one understands just how close she is to them, I felt this burden on me that I had taken away her time with her family, and now she was alone. So I was going out to work, and she'd be crying at home. And I was thinking, she's got no friends, she's got no support. And I know you can relate to this with moving and relationships and so much going on. And so it's like, I'm dealing with that. And guess what? 6 months later, I have to leave and move on and work on a new career to build everything myself. And then I'm 4 months away from being broke. And so on top of all of this, I've now got 4 months away from being broke. I've got enough money saved for 4 months to pay for rent and groceries, and that's it. In New York City, and that's it. And guess what? Even on top of that, I've got 30 days before my visa runs out and I'm kicked out of the country. So I can't even live here anymore. So not only have I just got married, moved job 3 times, changed career again, had to move into an apartment, 4 months of being broke, and I might get kicked out in 30 days, and my renewal for my visa costs $15,000.
Oh.
So that's gonna eat into those 4 months. I have probably never been under that much emotional, physical, and mental pressure in my life. Like genuinely, I felt it. And I felt my body change. My breath was more stressed. I would be breathing faster, shorter breaths, not deep breaths, heart beating faster, not working out. You get into lazy habits, you start craving junk food.
Sugar to get energy.
I'm living in a 500 square foot apartment with my wife, which is tiny, like everything's in that space. And guess what? We both work from home. So I'm now sitting at a desk, hunched over, trying to figure stuff out. She's trying to cook in the same room. Like I'm trying to, just trying to figure out what to do. And I remember the next morning, sending like 100 emails to people and just being like, this is who I am, this is what I can do, how can we serve? And that was the same year that I ended up meeting you later in that year. And the beginning 3 months of that journey was so stressful. Like they were so stressful because I was like, what if I have to move back to London? What am I gonna say to her parents? I mean, I just took their daughter away. Like,
just got married.
I've lived in New York City for 6 months and my life's falling apart. Like, you know, so much. And I've got all these views, but there's nothing happening. And we met.
But you also, I mean, at this time, you're also growing so much. How are you able to create and reach this impact with your videos as that's growing while you're under so much stress and uncertainty?
And I stopped a bit at that time. Like things slowed down hard. Like things slowed down.
I remember that.
I wasn't creating as much as I was because I don't enjoy creating from stress or pressure. And I don't think you can really create something from stress and pressure. So we really slowed down at that time. And when I was creating from a place of recognizing that I could share what I had learned and what I had grown in so far. So anything I was sharing was like, this is what I've learned so far. So that was the biggest pain that I've been through in the last 7 years, for sure. And all I can say is that I remember coming home to my wife knowing that this was gonna be the truth. And I came home and I said to her, I guarantee you, this is gonna be the best thing that ever happened to us.
What, the pain?
The pain. I said that to her the night I came home, and then she gave out for that. I literally came home, I looked her in the eyes and go, this is the scenario. And I just want you to know that I guarantee to you, this is the best thing that's ever gonna happen to us. And I said to her, and this is a monk statement that we used to repeat, I said to her, I'm just not gonna judge the moment. Don't judge the moment, because what we do is we try to label moments as good or bad. And when you label a moment as bad, it now does not have the opportunity to become good. I'll give an example. If I go, I don't like this book's bad, right? And I love this book. But if I say that, guess what? I will never pick it up and recognize the value that's inside of it because you've labeled it. And we label stuff, like we label, oh, that restaurant's bad. But when you label a moment,
person's bad,
that person's bad. Now you can't learn from that person. Oh, a great one. That's a really good one. As soon as you start labeling people or anything as good or bad, you limit it. You stop it from being something else. And here's the truth. Every moment can evolve into being anything if you give it the opportunity to.
Right.
But as soon as you say it's got no value anymore, you lose it. And so for me, I had to say to myself, don't judge the moment. And I'd keep repeating that to myself.
Don't judge where you're at.
Don't judge
what's happening.
Yeah, don't judge it as negative. Don't just start saying it's negative. Because guess what? We've all been in positions where a gift turned into a curse and a curse turned into a gift.
That's true.
Right? We've also
where our
been
dreams
in the
came
opposite.
true and it ended up not being what we wanted.
Exactly.
And it fell apart and it led us into our dreams.
Totally. Why is it that so many people that win the lottery go broke?
Yeah.
Gifts can turn into curses too.
True.
But because we label them as the best moment in our life or the worst moment in our life. Whereas when you approach things to neutrality and just what you have on the table, you can be like, okay, what am I going to do next?
So I think the biggest and hardest lesson is that our family and our friends will be more inspired by our example than our education. They're going to change when they see us change. They're going to transform when they see us genuinely transform. They're not fascinated by how much you've learned and how much you know, and you can do a headstand now, and you can do all these chakras and mudras, and all these Sanskrit words, and that doesn't move the people that have known you since you were young or have known you before, and that doesn't make an impact on them. What makes an impact on them is your example and your transformation and the amount you've changed. I remember this was really tough. So someone asked a similar question, but not as nicely as you did. You asked it very respectfully. But I remember when I was a monk, this question was asked to my teacher, and my teacher's actually very compassionate, but this was one of his heavier moments of it was harsh. But he was asked by someone in the crowd. They said to him, I'm trying so hard to get my family to become spiritual, and I'm doing everything, and they don't listen to me, and I'm trying really hard, and it's not working, and I'm doing this, and I'm doing that, I'm doing this, and I'm teaching them this, and I'm taking them this, and nothing's happening. And my teacher said to them, and they were a student of his, and my teacher said to them, he said, tolerate them as I'm tolerating you. And I was and so he actually said, and he's super sweet. My teacher's 70 years old. He's been a monk for 40 years. He's amazing. He's one of the sweetest people in the world. And he said that, and I was like, whoa. I was like, you just got served. It was one of those moments. And he's in robes, and he says it really peacefully and everything. But the lesson I got from that is that someone's done that for us. Someone's been patiently waiting for me to transform, for me to grow, whether it's a mentor, a guide, a guru, a teacher, or whatever it is. There's someone in our life, in any transformation, who's also waiting for us. So part of it is patience. Patience is a huge thing. You're never going to change someone or make them do something. And half the time, you just have to get out of the way. The part with patience that works is introduce them to who they're inspired by. Don't try and be their inspiration, right? And I often say that to even in parenting situations, when parents introduce their kids to people they're inspired by, that will help the kids more than telling the kids to do the right thing. And I've seen that happen so often when you look at sports as well. Even if your father was the best actor or best sports player in the world, or your mother was the best tennis player or performer or whatever it is, you're never impressed by your parents. We're rarely impressed by our family when we're younger. We get gratitude later on, but in our early days, we don't have that. But we need to meet people. So if you can introduce your family to people they're inspired by, that's going to make a huge difference. And the final one, like I said at the start, was just your example. Seeing you really change, seeing your behavior change, your language change, your communication change. That's going to give them the greatest confidence that, what she's doing is right. It works. Right? The proof's in the pudding. The proof's in seeing you actually make that change.
In the middle of 2009, he was the software engineer that no one wanted to hire. He had 12 years of experience at Yahoo, but he was rejected by Facebook and then rejected by Twitter. He'd been to a great university. He had a great CV. But he decided to team up with one of his alumni members at Yahoo and started to create an app and focus on the startup space. In 5 years' time, he sold that app for $19 billion to Facebook. Believe it or not, that was Brian Acton, the co-founder of WhatsApp. When he was rejected from Facebook, he said it was a great opportunity to connect with some fantastic people. I look forward to life's next adventure. When he was rejected by Twitter, he responded by saying, worked out, it was quite a long commute. It's so interesting to see that someone rejected from two of the top internet companies actually responded with humor and actually responded with positivity. This lady was diagnosed with clinical depression. Her marriage had failed and she was jobless with a dependent child. She was on a 4-hour delayed train journey from Manchester to London when she came up with this idea, and she started to write this book about this wizard. And as she started writing, she then finished her manuscript, took it to 12 publishers and was rejected by all 12. Believe it or not, that's J.K. Rowling.
This man watched his first company crumble. He was a Harvard University dropout, and his first company's demo didn't even work. He went on to build Microsoft. His name's Bill Gates. Therefore, failure is just a sign that we need to widen our scope. We need to be ready and build ourselves up for the next level. Actually, what we end up achieving is far greater than what we'd envisioned for ourselves. And this divine plan, this orchestration can't be happening without this intervention that occurs, because if we had it our way, we'd just settle, we'd just accept what we thought was our goal, what we thought we were chasing. But actually, I've noticed that when you don't get that, later down the line, you look back and you reflect and realize that what you've gained is so much greater. Failures are only failures when we don't learn from them, because when we learn from them, they become lessons, and we actually extrapolate all of these teachings and actually get more insight into how we can improve the way we work and how we can actually drive with a different energy. The challenge we have is that we only talk about people's failures when they succeed, and that's why they become this taboo, or we feel like their failures never happened. We need to share these stories earlier. We need to bring out these stories and experiences on the journey so that people who are on the journey can actually follow in those footsteps. And that's why Steve Jobs said you can't connect the dots moving forward. You only can when you're looking backwards. Now, it's incredible that we root for underdogs. It's incredible that we want underdogs to win. Why? Because we're used to wanting our team to win. We're used to wanting the best to win. We're used to wanting to associate ourselves with people who are successful, right? We never go, oh yeah, I know someone who plays for that really bad team. Like, we don't say that, right? We say things like, oh, I know someone who plays for that really good team. I know someone who was MVP. I know someone who's the son or the daughter of the MVP. We try and associate or link ourselves to success. And when we do that, it in turn makes us feel more successful. It's one of the reasons why when your team wins, you say, we won, right? You say, we won. But when someone asks you, oh, how did your team do? And if they lost that day, you say, they lost. You rarely say, we lost. It's incredible how psychologically we distance ourselves from failure and we closen or liken ourselves to success. But the exception to that rule is the underdog. We all get excited by underdogs. We all get motivated by underdogs. We feel completely enamored by the story of the underdog. Prashant, underdogs are just simple-minded. They don't have expectations and don't have anything to prove to anybody. And Prashant, you've just hit the nail on the head. That's the principle I'm trying to get across. Actually, we should play like champions and train like underdogs. Why? Because the underdog works in a way not worrying about what anybody else thinks or believes. That gives you an edge. It gives you a phenomenal advantage when you're not actually worried about what will people say. When you're not concerned by, am I going to fail? Am I going to look worse? Is what I'm doing not going to succeed? As an underdog, you don't let those things cloud your mind. You can focus in on the task at hand. See, when we become successful, even as underdogs, if we've risen to success, the biggest enemy of that success, the biggest Achilles heel, the biggest thing that can trip us up is not reconnecting to that feeling of an underdog. So no matter how much success you've achieved, no matter where you are, always remind yourself the mindset of an underdog is the mindset that nurtures talent, that nurtures success, that harnesses your true potential. This man began singing and playing the guitar at age 4. His parents didn't want him to watch too much television. He was banned from playing video games, but he had a lot of books about art. He didn't enjoy school and was even bullied at age 15. A year later, he decided to quit school and follow his dreams of making it in the music industry. Now, things didn't go as planned. He ended up homeless, sleeping often on trains just to get by. This lasted for around 3 years where he had nowhere to live. He spent multiple nights and days performing to small groups, often without even eating. To his surprise, some of his tracks went viral on iTunes, even reaching the #2 spot on the iTunes chart. By the end of the year, his album had sold 801,000 copies, making it the 8th best-selling album of the year. His latest song was one of the most listened to worldwide. His name? Ed Sheeran. Today, he's mentored by Elton John. Paul McCartney says that he's a fan. He's even written songs for Taylor Swift, One Direction, and many, many more. Ed's story teaches us that there's no such thing as an overnight success. He was so shocked and surprised when his album went viral online, but when you look at the struggle before that, you see the pain he had to go through. Often we only view people's success as what we see in their highlight reel, and we forget what they actually had to go through to get to that stage. And that's why the next time you see someone that you think is successful, don't focus on what they're doing now. Focus on what they did to get there.
What are people not understanding about video?
Okay.
What are they not understanding about how powerful it is for their business, their brand, and ultimately their message to impact people?
It's always that same question. What's the ROI on social media? Right? What's the ROI? Now, the funny thing is, your business, work, and service, my business, work, and service literally lives off of social media. Mm-hmm. So there's obviously an ROI. But the problem is we live in a world where we want everything to be measurable. And there's a beautiful Einstein quote that says, not everything that counts can be counted, and not everything that you can count counts, right? And we live in this world where everything needs to be measured. Like, oh, that video has 1 million views, how many sales did you get through that? But it's like, life doesn't work like that. There's a load of adverts and billboards on the street that the biggest brands pay for that don't convert into direct sales. Do you think that Coca-Cola looks at the billboard out there and goes, how many people saw that advert today and how many people bought a Coca-Cola because of that advert? They don't have that number. It doesn't exist. And they're one of the biggest brands in the world, but they still do it. So social media, video is just a new billboard. And the biggest brands know that the more you see it, like, I mean, this is funny, I saw this today. I saw a big billboard outside of my hotel that has all the Jenners and the Kardashians wearing their Calvins. Have you seen it?
Yeah.
Right, I saw it straight away this morning. Then I saw it on Instagram, and then I saw it everywhere. So already, I've seen it in 3 places. Now, I don't need women's Calvin underwear. But the point is that I've seen it in 1 million places. So anyone who's not using video hasn't understood that more people are gonna see video than anything else. And not just that, video is so much better than a billboard. You can say so much more.
Right.
So for me, it's just a lack of seeing opportunity. There's a great, I think this is a old tale, it's not true, but it's told that when Nike first went to India, they went there, and it's not Nike, it's any sneaker brand, it's a nice story. And when they first went to India, they saw everyone was barefoot. So the first reporter came back and said, oh, there's no market there because no one wears trainers. And then the second reporter went there and he said, oh, no one wears shoes. And then he came back and says, we've got a huge market out there, right? And it's the way you see it. Someone saw no one wearing shoes as no market, but another person saw everyone not wearing shoes as a market.
Right.
And that's what video is. That you can sit here and debate the ROI on video for as long as you want. But the truth is, every major brand has invested in a front window that may not translate to direct sales or work or whatever it is.
Right.
But it does.
Do you think every brand should be using video?
Every brand should be using video.
Because you made it this far in a video, I want to celebrate you. Most people start and don't finish. Most people never actually follow through. Most people say they want something, but they don't ever do the work to actually get it. But you are different. You are special. Believe Nation, you made it here all the way to the end, and I love you. So as a special celebration, if you put a hashtag believe down in the comments below on this video, I will showcase you and celebrate you somewhere on the screen in a future video because you are awesome. If you want 10 more amazing rules from Jay Shetty, check out the video right there next to me. I think you'll love it. Continue to believe, and I'll see you there.
Words that we should use more of in our life are words that give us the right feeling we want to feel. So I'll give you an example.